Welcome to We Can Talk About That, a Christos Community Church podcast that dives into difficult or uncomfortable topics that impact today's church. All right, welcome to the third edition of We Can Talk About That. As always, joined by Alex Villasana, the pastor of Christos.
Hello.
And I am Matt McNair, just an ordinary guy or an elder at Christos.
Anything but ordinary, I think. But okay, let's keep going.
Today, our topic is Christian participation in politics. It's a particularly relevant topic, obviously coming out of a recent presidential contest. And in the state of Georgia, we are still in the midst of a Senate runoff for both of our Senate seats. So how Christians participate or should think about participation in politics is relevant and often comes up actually in your sermons. And so we want to tackle that today. Alex, what kind of opening thoughts do you have on the topic?
Well, I'm going to begin with you that it is important. It may seem like we're done. You know, the presidential election was over, and now Christmas season and everything. It may feel like, hey, we should not be talking about this for another 2 years, something like that. But with the runoff in January, I think it's important that we continue engaging, not overdo it, but you know, remember our responsibility. So definitely it's something we must talk about.
Awesome. And in our work before the call, we talked about kind of defining politics as or stepping back from politics for a second and talking about really what is a fundamental call for a Christian in the life of a nation. So what do you think that is?
Well, I really believe, looking at scripture, I really believe that you cannot separate your spiritual formation, what we Christians call discipleship, you know, your desire to be a follower of Christ Jesus in humility. You cannot separate that desire with engagement in this life. There is no way to divorce. There's no way to say, well, this is one thing and I'm exempt or I should not participate here. I cannot see how you can do it without violating scripture. There are plenty of places in the Bible where we as Christians are called to care for creation, care for one another, care for the city where we are, care for the nation where we are at. And if we do believe what the Bible said, we know or we believe that we are in this place at this time for a very specific purpose, which is that people may know God, according to Acts 17, and serving others, serving the community, caring for creation, caring for society is a way for us to tell people there is this living God, the only true living God who cares for us. So it is all intertwined, it is connected, we should not separate it. A discipleship process that doesn't include participation in life is what is the word? In Spanish we'll say raquítico, which is like you're not well fed, you know, you are
malnourished,
lacking.
Yeah.
There we go, malnourished. That would be a nice word. Yes, it will be a malnourished discipleship process if you don't include participation in the here and now. Yes.
So, and that's great. If we could unpack a little bit I guess, how that plays out in the context of the United States, and also if you could dive into some of the risks that we may run while engaging in politics, particularly in the U.S.
One issue that I see is, and this not only with politics. Well, let me step back. Here in the States, my opinion is that here in the U.S., politics is almost like a contact sport. You know, if you're not aggressive, if you're not, you know, punching people, then you're not participating in politics, which is not correct. And also, and that is not exclusive to politics. But we have the tendency, we humans have the tendency to find identity in the things we do. And then our politics becomes our identity. For the Christian, there's a problem. because our identity comes from the finished work of Jesus Christ, who is God Himself. And that is the conflict that I see. That is the risk that I see, that we may be way too much engaged in politics, or that we may see politics as a replacement for discipleship.
Mm-hmm.
That's where basically idolatry. We make an idol out of our civic participation. That is the biggest risk that we have here in the States.
Do we also, I guess, stated maybe a slightly different way, run a risk? See, R's are hard for me too. Of
Correct.
equating our political beliefs with our Christian beliefs.
That is true, and I have been thinking a lot about that. I subscribe to, what is it? It's right here too. I was reading it. It's called Modern Reformation.
Mm-hmm.
A very good theological journal, and they have a podcast called The White Horse Inn. And in a recent episode, they talk about being a Christian, very specifically in our camp. Being a Reformed Christian, and being either Republican or Democrat. And it was a very interesting exchange. You may think that normally in Christendom, we kind of bend towards identifying the Republican Party as the quote unquote Christian party,
mm-hmm.
Which is of course not the case. We may have some things in common, but also we have things in common with the Democrat Party, and we don't speak too much about that. So yes, there is a problem with identifying God exclusively with one political party. That is a problem. And then we think, which is fascinating, is really fascinating, because I think both sides are making mistakes, because both sides think that they have the high moral ground. Mm-hmm. Therefore, they can judge the other team, which that is a problem. It is a fundamental misunderstanding of the gospel of grace. So yeah, that is a big issue here in the States.
Yeah, similarly, so we read an article by Keller in preparation for this that we'll include as well. He talked about how the two parties in the U.S. almost, I'll paraphrase and call it package deal politics, which is if you're going to be a Republican, you accept the entire Republican platform wholesale, or you can't be a Republican. Similarly, on the Democratic side, what do you agree that happens in the U.S., and what kind of risks do you see occurring there?
Yeah, I think it does happen. I don't see a formal approach for either party to do it that way. I think it's more of our own, go on all in. I'm of this team. I'm buying the whole thing. I'm drinking the whole Kool-Aid.
And there's some maybe some cultural pressure as well, right? Like,
oh, absolutely, yes, and again, what we see here is culture dictating how we should participate, instead of us listening to the gospel and the truth on how to participate. There is a cultural pressure to be like this, and then we feel that we have to be conformed, and as you said, accept the whole package, which is fascinating to me, because, well, this is going to be old news soon, since the Trump administration, it has only like 3 more weeks, or 4 more weeks, or what is it, on the 20th of January, right? So 4 more weeks of being in power, or being in the office. But often I heard people from my team, from the Republican side, saying something like, it is a package deal. We must accept President Trump as a package, with the good and the bad, which it's okay to accept it. It's not okay to remain silent. That's my deal. Like, yeah, of course, he's a human being. Of course, it has good things and bad things. Yes, just like me, just like you, like anyone else. However, when we say we should accept the package, what it translates into often is Don't criticize. Don't say anything about that. Just take the whole pill and swallow it and be happy with it, and which is not correct also. There's a problem.
Yeah, I agree wholesale with that statement.
Yeah.
All right, so just recapping a little bit where we come. Christians should be engaged in politics. We live in a particular
Mhm.
time and place in the U.S. where that engagement is available to us rather
Yes.
freely. Neither party fully represents what what the ideal Christian beliefs would be. Neither party has a chokehold on, or not chokehold, I guess, but a claim to be the absolute moral high ground.
Mhm.
And there are some risks that we need to pay attention to as we engage. So then,
Yeah.
I really have to just kind of two more questions to ask. One is like, well, I guess it's really primarily it's how do we stay informed? How do we prioritize the issues that we need to care about? And then what does it look like for us to be engaged?
Well, let me just one step back, making reference to Pastor Keller's, and it's going to be almost anathema, what I'm going to say, anathema. I disagree with Pastor Keller in a few things. One statement that he makes, and also John Piper make this a similar statement, which I'm in deep waters already. I'm going against Pastor Keller and John Piper. That is not a good place to be.
They're intellectual lightweights,
However,
Alex. Don't worry about it.
yeah, I mean, those guys, of course. But a statement, I think actually the title of the article is something like how Christians fit in a
Two-party
two-party
system.
system, and then the answer is they don't. I disagree with that. I really disagree with that statement. I believe that we do fit, and we fit perfectly. And again, I'm gonna subscribe to God's providence. It's not an accident that we're here, and actually we fit perfectly because if we are guided by the gospel, then we can plug in exactly where we need to be connected at, hopefully helping both parties or holding them accountable or pointing to the mistakes or the issues that we need to be addressing. Now I'm moving towards your question. As Christians, I think, let me be very specific. I think our participation must be focused in a fight against injustice. I think that's the big deal.
Mm.
I think that's the issue. A fight against injustice. I always advise people, make a list of three issues that you're concerned about, no more than five. So either a top three or a top five, and focus on that, and dig in, find more as much information as possible, but not your top five issues in terms of politics, so that you may vote according to those five issues. I'm assuming that the Christian is going to pray about it, is going to seek God's wisdom in what of those issues should be. But even to summarize that, I think we should fight against injustice. That's the thing. And as Christians, and now I'm moving to more practical advice here. Fight against injustice. Um, as Christians, as individuals, we cannot fight every injustice. We may not see results on this life. That's okay. But I think that each one of us must pick one injustice to fight, to work towards the elimination of that injustice, at the same time that we remain vocal about other issues, about other injustice. I'm going to get a little technical here. I see this as a distributed system that God is implementing, and He's giving me a heart for certain injustice, or the heart against certain injustice, right? I'm going to pick one. Let's say human trafficking. Mm-hmm. That is not fair. That is unjust. So because the way God formed me, my history, God's work in me, I have a desire to see the ending of human trafficking. Mm. you may have another inclination, maybe um, police brutality or the abuse of the force of police sometimes, and you think, that is not fair. It's not fair. Or even acceptable racism, or something that it resonates with your heart. That isn't just, I'm going to work towards that, to finish that, to end that. However, I think that there are other injustices that I need to, and you too, we need to be vocal about. I don't know if that makes sense. So we work towards one, but we remain vocal about others,
Mm-hmm.
other injustices. I think with that attitude, this is my theory, the net result is that we're going to be moving towards the center of the political spectrum, and we're going to be able to work together. Because one party emphasizes certain, the fight of certain injustices, the other emphasizes these others. But if we come together, then we talking about this distributed system, then we may find that proverbial common ground, and we may be able to help each other, and hopefully many injustices are going to be resolved because of that way of working. That's what I think. That's should be our approach.
I like it. I like it a lot. So then I will close, I guess, with this last question. I think, it's the holidays. It's Christmas.
Yep.
We're going to be spending time with family. We
Absolutely.
don't all believe. Quick shout out to Christos and the Bring It to the Table that we did.
Yes.
That what's great about Christos and our congregation is we are diverse in all manner of speaking, and
Yes.
we operate, I think, pretty well with each other. So, but anyways, we're going to be bringing it to the table, I suppose, with our family members. How do you engage with fellow believers and maybe in non-believers in appropriate political discourse?
I think we should focus on the issues that our heart resonates with.
Mm-hmm.
I think that showing compassion is important. I will go with what we study on James chapter 1, when it said that we need to be, I'm paraphrasing, we need to be good at listening. And I'll finish my comment with that explanation of that verb. James is not telling us that we need to listen for cues when the other person is done speaking, that we may speak. That's not what he's saying. When he said and be good at listening, it implies the same attitude that we have when we listen to God, meaning we are looking for wisdom, we are seeking direction. And when I have an interaction with another human being, that should be my attitude, that this person has something to contribute to my own views. So think about it as a way to improve your views. If you show compassion, if you listen, you're not showing weakness, you're not disregarding your passions, you're actually upholding them very high to the point that you want to get more feedback, from you, and improve your own position. So if we have that in mind, I think we're going to have a good dialogue around the table this Christmas and New Year's Eve.
I like it. Okay. Do you have any closing thoughts on the topic before we go ahead and sign off?
Just two things. Please let us consider how to participate. Let's actually put these ideas into practice. And just to show you, maybe your guys already know, but just to show how unique our congregation is, I got word that Time Magazine is interested on the documentary that they came to record here at Christos. and Time Magazine may include some of those clips in their the summary for 2020. At the end of the year they do like a special, and I don't know if it's going to be on TV or online only, but they are talking about including part of the documentary because its uniqueness. So it goes to show that it is possible with God. Yes, it's possible to have a nice exchange of ideas, even about politics. So We'll see
Awesome.
what happens.
All right.
Yes.
Well, thank you again to our listeners, and check back with us in a couple of weeks. Leave some comments and let us know what you think.
Yes, please. Thank you.